So in this talk, the Rebbe was speaking about a certain Jew and how he behaved and how it impacted a non-Jew. But really, the Rebbe is putting such an emphasis on how it impacted the non-Jew. So I thought, how much more so can Noahides? I mean, they relate to a lot of non-Jews, and they can impact a lot of non-Jews. And as we said before, when we are reaching another non-Jew, it's very special to God. And the Rebbe doesn't go into this in this point, but this is based on the Hasidic discourse that we spoke about last week. One point the Rebbe says is that Jewish people are God's people. So like he already has them. They're great, they're amazing, they're wonderful, and he has them. But non-Jews, he doesn't have that same way. They don't have that awareness of him and that relationship with him the same way. So when a non-Jew recognizes God, it's really special. It's like what we call the idea of a new face. We have a Jewish wedding. After Jewish wedding, we have a week of celebration called Sheva Brachos. We have a week of parties. And there's not too many laws about the parties, but one of the laws is that at every party you have to have a new person that was not at the wedding or any of the other parties. Because a new person that never participated yet in this joy, adds to the joy. There's a special joy of someone new. And that's what God feels when the non-Jew recognizes him. And that's why when you can reach out to non-Jews, to help them connect to God, help them be aware of God, help them recognize God, help them praise God, help them serve God. It's such a joy by God because this is a new face. This is someone that, wasn't on his team before, so to speak, that wasn't aware of him. And you can help that this other human being is now aware of God. The other point that I've explained in this other talk, this Hasidic discourse, is that God created this world because he wants a home in the physical reality. And Jews are not completely within the physical lowest dimension reality. Jews are like, we're a little bit of incognito. We're a little bit of a fake out. We act like we're part of the physical world. We might think we're part of the physical world. Most of us do think we're just as physical as everything else, but really we're not. But non-Jews are. So when the non-Jew recognizes God, God is getting the fulfillment of his reason for creation. God is getting a home. This is creating Mashiach, redemption. Redemption is when God has a home on planet Earth. And when the Gentile, the non-Jew, moving to become the Noahide, or maybe isn't even yet a Noahide, maybe isn't a Noahide, but still is recognizing God, is praising God, is aware of God, is beginning to serve God. This is this world. This is this world, and now God has a home. And that's Mashiach, when God has a home in this lowest realm. So when the non-Jews are recognizing God, they're setting the stage that now Mashiach can come. Because God's vision of creation, that in this lowest realm he should have a home, is being fulfilled by the non-Jew, let alone when a non-Jew becomes a Noahide. But I'm saying it doesn't even have to get to that point. Beginning recognizing God, praising God, awareness of God, all of these preliminary steps are already creating for God that home on planet Earth. And that's creating Mashiach. So it's really huge. So the story the Rebbe says here, this is a story, and then the Rebbe discusses it a little bit, was with a very, very wealthy man who had become close to the Rebbe. The Rebbe doesn't identify him by name, but I can tell you his name. His name is David Chase. And very, very, very wealthy person. And so wealthy that he has his own private yacht. And he was on his yacht, his own private boat with a captain, and he asked the captain, can you tell me which direction is east? And he says, sure. He shows him the direction. Okay. The next day, he says to the captain, can you tell me which direction is east? Sure. Shows him the direction. Maybe the third day, maybe the fourth day. At a certain point, the captain is thinking, what does this guy need to know? Where's east? Like, he's not a captain of a boat. He's not even a sailor. He's this rich businessman who owns it, who has the captain, who has the sailors. He's the passenger. What does he need to know where east is? Okay, the first day he thought it was curiosity. The second day, at a certain point, what's up? So, of course, respectfully, but he's like, why do you always want to know where it's east? And this very wealthy businessman said to him, because I pray to God. He wasn't embarrassed. He had learned you're not supposed to be embarrassed about serving God. So he said to this captain, who was not Jewish, he said, because I pray to God, and we pray toward Jerusalem. And from where we are here in America, Jerusalem is east. So I'm asking you, where's east? I want to know which direction to pray. But you ask me every day. Yeah, every day I pray to God, and every day I turn east. So I should be facing Jerusalem in my prayers. So this made a tremendous impression on the captain. It helped that the man was very, very, very wealthy. Because he's thinking, here's this person who's so wealthy, who's so successful, and every single day he prays to God. Like he has some peripheral thought or something, or he has something, in his mind. No, this is real. He takes the time, he prays, he even prepares himself to make sure he's facing the right direction, right? He's facing east as he prays, because that's the direction, that's Jerusalem that he's praying toward. So it's like, wow, if he's taking this time to pray to God, maybe I should also. And this made a tremendous impression on the captain. The Rebbe said, this person, this Jew, David Chase, he wasn't trying to inspire the captain. He wasn't thinking like, oh, if I tell him I pray, this will remind him that there's a God. It will awaken his awareness of God. It'll make him think about God. It'll make him want to pray to God. He wasn't thinking any of that. He was just literally thinking about his own prayers. He had no thought in his mind about moving this other person to pray. But guess what? That's what happens. That's how we work. When we are serving God, people around us, they get affected by how we serve God, and they start thinking about serving God. They're like, well, if you believe that much, maybe I should revisit my own belief. Maybe I should think about my own belief. Maybe I should take out more time in my life for God. And the Rebbe says, even if he didn't do anything afterwards, even if he didn't have any follow-up prayers to God because of this, that very thought is powerful. And let alone if because of that, he took the time and began to pray himself. The Rebbe says 3 powerful things came from this. 1, the fact that the captain is thinking about the idea of prayer, like, oh wow, this very rich, very successful person takes out time from his day, doesn't just have this peripheral thought about God, but literally takes out time and turns in a certain direction and literally is talking to God. That thought itself is like prayer. This person is thinking about prayer to God. That's like prayer. Now, the whole world is supposed to pray to God. Praying to God is not just a Jewish privilege. Every non-Jew is also supposed to pray to God. Obviously, every Noahide is supposed to pray to God. Where is it in the 7 laws? It's part of belief in God is we pray to him. We turn to him for our needs every single day. It's not like you're being an extra special Noahide when you pray to God. It's literally the obligation of the Noahides to pray to God. So when this captain is thinking about the thought of a prayer, that's already a prayer. He's fulfilling an obligation to pray to God. That's one thing that's being accomplished. A second thing that's being accomplished is if he's thinking about God in this real way, like, oh my gosh, God, this big businessman prays to God, like it makes God so real. This is negation of idolatry. He's believing in God. He's negating idolatry. That's another incumbent obligation on the Noahide, on the non-Jew to serve God. So with this conversation, without the businessman, without David Chase trying to inspire him or wanting to inspire him or thinking about inspiring him, he's bringing this non-Jew to, at least at that moment, pray to God. He's bringing this non-Jew to be aware of God's reality, which means he's negating idolatry. That's something very important and incumbent on every non-Jew. And then the Rebbe says there's a third point. And the third point is, and this is a really important concept I want to focus on a bit, one service of God leads to another. In the Hebrew, we say mitzvah goreres mitzvah, which means one commandment automatically flows to the next. How did that apply in this context? So the Rebbe says, here you have this captain who had this thought of God. He was so inspired or affected, this rich man, so rich that he owns his own yacht and has me as his captain and has a crew. He takes off time every day and literally like does an action. It's not just like, some little thought in his brain. He takes time and he's talking to God. This was his type of prayer. This was his negation of idolatry. And the impact continued in the coming days. Because if opportunities came up, or just life created situations that he was confronted with doing things that were not really appropriate or moral, or what a God-fearing person would do, this captain would stop and he wouldn't do them. Because he was reminded of his relationship with God yesterday or the day before that or the day before that. And that reminder, that awareness that there's a God impacted him, that he can't behave like that. You can't behave like that if you know there's a God. You can't behave like that if you know there's a God and you're thinking he's watching you. You can't behave like that if you know there's a God and he's watching you and measuring and rewarding and punishing. You can't behave like that. Life isn't a jungle. There's a God, and you've got to behave appropriate for a God who's watching you. So imagine that impact, that we could interact with someone. We don't know what we're doing. We're not aware of how we're affecting him. And that person can move on and make different life choices because of our impact. That person could be like, no, I can't do that. Not if there's a God. I'm not going to do that. Not if there's a God. Have you seen this? Have you seen this where you yourself have been affected by someone, and because of that, even though the other person didn't know, you made different choices?
I think just even like going to the synagogue, when you see certain things that they do, and you see that the choices you might have made in the past aren't really godly like, because you see and you're learning from them what is more godly than what is the norm for society.
So you're saying when you go to the synagogue and you see this, then afterwards it affects you?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's a whole different culture than what we're used to. And like when I would bring, I would come in and we had given a lot to the synagogue, or we give for the meal, and the young the rabbi's son, he always bows to me when he says hi. I mean, that's wow. I mean, that's you're not used to that, you know. There's things like that you see that the Jews do that isn't normal, that makes you start thinking, if he's appreciating me, then I need to be appreciating others that are doing things for me. And so it grows like that.
Wow. I hear what you're saying. Wow, that's really beautiful. Robin, what were you going to say?
I couldn't think of anything immediately, but I know that that has affected me of taking more steps and growing,
I think we're all like that. I think every one of us, when
you
we
know.
see something and that inspires us, and then we change, but we don't necessarily tell the person and give them credit or give them like a nachas report of like, oh, because you did this, that inspired me and I did that. Like, I don't know if Dixie went back to that boy and said, oh, because you bowed to me, so I da 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 da. She didn't bother, I imagine, though I could be wrong. Dixie can correct me. But she changed. I can remember once seeing one of my students davening really beautifully. I mean, day after day, I would see her every day by davening, by prayer, and she davened, she prayed so beautifully, so sincerely, and it really inspired my prayer. It really made me pray more seriously and more beautifully, inspired by her prayer. I don't think I ever told her. I'm sure I never told her. Actually, I'm positive I never told her. But seeing her praying sincerely helped me pray sincerely, made me want to pray sincerely, elicited my sincere prayers. So it's true for all of us.
Yeah.
when we experience, and maybe two people could have seen this girl pray sincerely and one's affected and one's not, and two people could have seen the boy bowing to them and one's affected and one's not. Obviously, it has a lot to do with what we're coming to the table with, what our thoughts are and what our reflections are and what our experiences and history are. But
Mhm.
definitely when we see good around us, and sometimes we don't even make the connection that, oh, I made this choice because I saw this person making that choice. Maybe it's very subconscious by us. But of
Mhm.
course, what we're doing is very much affected by the good in people we see around us.
Oh, I know
Mhm.
why he was bowing. It takes me a while to get my brain going, but I can't. He's the most fantastic cook. He's the rabbi's son. He's learned from some of the best cooks in Colorado Springs, and his food is incredible. And I have always complimented him. Every time I compliment him on his food, that's when he bows and says thank you. And so that's that, and that makes me think, okay, now, if people are complimenting me, then I need to be more respectful when they compliment me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You're right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful because people could just shrug it off or say, mumble a thank you. And here he's
Mhm.
being so gracious and humble at the same time. And it makes you think, how do I respond to compliments?
Mhm.
Exactly.
What about the other way? Has either of you had an experience where you inspired someone else and they actually let you know? As versus we're saying most of the time that people don't let the other person know.
Oh, I do all the time. People are always very complimentary, very thankful when I've helped them. Very thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Same
share.
with me.
Yeah, people
And
say,
I'm also very thankful to people who are, they're telling me something that inspires me. I also thank them, for what they have done and said.
meaning you want,
Hmm.
it's a beautiful trait to make sure, if possible, when appropriate,
Hmm.
that you tell the person, that really
Hmm.
inspired me. That really helped me. I actually had that. I had that, whatever, something in the holidays when
Hmm.
something happened and I saw a girl crying during the hakafot, during the dancing on the first night of the holiday of Shmini Atzeres. And I was concerned. I thought maybe something happened. I thought maybe she got hurt. So I didn't know who she was, but I said, are you okay? Like, I mean, obviously I saw she was crying. And she said, no, I'm just so emotional. This is so beautiful. I'm so emotional. And that like really helped me. Her just saying, I'm so emotional. This is so, so beautiful. I've never seen this before in my life. And I was like, wow, she's right. And that line of hers just helped me so much feel the emotion and the beauty. And it was amazing for me. It like turned around my whole experience on such a deeper level. And at the end of the dancing, at the end of the Hakafot, I thanked her. And I said to her that, you really, thank you. Your emotion helped me. It helped me access my deeper emotion. So we don't always remember to do that. We don't always remember to go back to the person and instead of paying it forward, pay it back. We're used to paying forward, but sometimes to pay it back and to say, thank you. It really helped me. You sharing that. It made a difference for me. We can remember and we can do that. It's very good. And I'm sure there's been many times when we have affected people. They're always saying here 3 points, going back to this captain. One, his very thought of the prayer was like a prayer, and that's a good thing. Everybody has to pray to God. His thinking about God was negating idolatry, and that's a good thing. Everybody has to negate idolatry. And his being impacted by this thought of the reality of God carried him through for a while, that he made different choices because his life should be as appropriate to someone in the presence of God. So all of this happened without that Jewish businessman, David Chase, in any way trying to influence. He was literally just doing his thing, needing to pray, wanting to make sure he was praying in the right direction. He was not trying to reach the other person. He was not trying to inspire the captain at all. When the captain asked him, he answered just because nothing to be embarrassed about. We're not embarrassed about our relationship with God, so he shared it. But that was it. He wasn't trying to inspire him, but he did. So imagine as we live our life and when we do utilize the opportunities to say thank God, to mention God, to share that we pray to God, to share that we say psalms, to share that we give charity, to share that we trust in God. When we're consciously trying, imagine how many more people we can reach in the same fashion. Like the Bible says, you remind them of God, that's already like a prayer. You remind them of God, they're negating idolatry. You're reminding them of God, they're going to make different choices in the future because they're reminded of the reality of God. There's so much benefit. It's so unbelievable, our power. And Noahides have this like at their fingertips because Noahides are immersed in a world of potential Noahide, of people that really desperately need to be reminded about God. And they're your neighbors and your friends and your acquaintances and your colleagues and people on the bus with you and people walking with you. And all over your world are such people. And who are they waiting for? Well, clearly they're waiting for you. Because who else is supposed to reach them, you know? They're not in the realm of where, you know, where the Chabad house is going to go to. So how are they going to get reached? So what the Rebbe is saying here, how one good deed leads to another. So David chases good deed of prayer and good deed of being focused to make sure he's praying east and not trusting himself, not knowing, you know, not taking out his cell phone and trying to figure it out. Well, of course, this was earlier than those days. You couldn't do that in those days. Didn't have cell phones in those days. But look how it reached another person. When we're trying, imagine how many people we are reaching. And we have no clue. We have no clue. You have no clue who's looking at you. You have no clue who's watching you. You have no clue who's aware. You have no clue when you talk about God who's being respectful and really taking it all in. You have no clue. But so many people make different life choices because of the good they've seen in their life, sometimes including they don't even know from where. They're not even remembering where they got this from. But they could have gotten it from you because what we do impacts. So it's a really powerful thought how one good deed leads to another. Our good deed, inspiring the people around us, leads to their good deeds. And when they do good deeds, that's going to inspire the people around them. And that's going to lead to those good deeds. And when those people do good deeds, it's, you know, and it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. And it should never stop.